Hello, this is Adam Carroll for the War on Immigrants Report.
This is Abraham Paulos, also. This is also Abraham Paulos, also for the War on Immigrants Report.
And we are part of Global Movement's Urban Struggles, coming every week, and we're monthly. Good evening to everyone out there in New York, you flickering lights, flickering like the television lights in windows, and flickering like a million lost stars and points of light. Is there meaning in this community? Well, we have a hive here, a virtual hive, WBAI, the community, and thanks to your donations in the past month, it's still humming along. So thank you again, and if you haven't sent your check, please do. We are premium free, and we are hopefully working towards freedom in order to grant rights and protect rights and cherish the rights of immigrant communities here in diverse New York City and across the country. So, welcome. I work for the Muslim community and wear many hats, including the New York State Interfaith Network for Immigration Reform.
And I am with Families for Freedom. We are an immigrant rights organization based in Manhattan.
And there's a lot of bad news. We usually begin with news, and often it is bad. 800,000 immigrants deported in the last 2 years. From the macro to the micro, the two men who died of carbon monoxide poisoning, lawn maintenance personnel going from the Bronx to Queens a day or two ago, turned on their lawnmower in the back of the truck, and that was it. Carbon monoxide did it. So the oppression and the difficult lives of immigrants are the bad news. But the good news is that Lost in Detention, important documentary on PBS, aired a week ago. Huddled Masses was written by Robert Morgenthau, who is Manhattan District Attorney from 1975 to 2009, very pro-immigrant. And 20 New York City Democrats have written a letter to President Obama calling on him to reconsider his decision that mandates state participation in secure communities, ESCOM, the infamous, the signees include, it's worth noting, all of the Democratic mayoral contenders, Council Speaker Christine Quinn, Comptroller John Liu, Public Advocate Bill de Blasio, and Manhattan BP Scott Stringer. Hopefully that is an indication that local struggles matter, and local struggles also receive some support when Michael Bloomberg threw his support last week behind a city council bill that would place limits on how far New York City goes to help the federal government detain and deport illegal immigrants in Rikers Island. The agency, ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, checks its databases for immigration violators and makes sure that they're taken into federal custody. The city obliges, but it doesn't have to legally. And so the city council is very close to passing a law. I don't think it's passed it yet, but has it?
Not to my knowledge. I think that I think it's still sort of in the works, but I think I don't know much about it.
It's the numbers are very close, and I believe it's pretty sure to pass. The agency, ICE, issued detainers on 3,506 Rikers inmates in 2009. But were they all dangerous criminals? The city council found that 22% of the detainers were placed on inmates with felony records, and more than half involved inmates with no prior convictions whatsoever. So it's a important snapshot that it's not targeted to felons, and in fact, felons are often not felons anyway. With the way the law is manipulated, with the aggravated felony conviction really being able to applied anything.
Right. It's two different, basically, two different systems. There's a criminal justice system and what they consider to be, a violation, misdemeanor, and a felony. And then there's also sort of the immigration system and what it considers to be a crimes against moral turpitude, or CIMT, and also what it considers to be an aggravated felony.
Mm-hmm. So I know the previous show talked quite a bit about the deadline coming up with the TPS for Haitians, and there are other deadlines also coming up, and we're going to just briefly touch on those as we wait for our first guest to be hopefully found at home. I'm going to text in a second, but it's the diversity visa. And it was established in Congress in 1994 to increase the number of immigrants coming into the country from developing states, even though, of course, Senator Kennedy made sure that Ireland was well represented in that. The actual deadline this year is this Saturday, and so I'm announcing that it's important to go to the website and apply if you think you can possibly win this lottery. A total of 90,000 applicants will be selected, and then lottery finalists will submit more forms, and finally out of that total 50,000 visas will be granted. So it's not one stage, but at least two. Registration began October 4th. It will close this Saturday, November 5th at noon, and the applicants should have a high school diploma, must have 2 years of work experience, and also should satisfy a few other criteria and send photographs. So you need to go to the website, which is should be here somewhere. As I look for it, it is important not to wait to the very last minute because the website can freeze. And Emerald Isle Immigration Services is one group, also Irish, that's been working for many years to advise the community on this. And they are happy to answer questions, though it might be too late for walk-ins. And their phone number, which I'll give, is 718-478-5502. That's 718-478-5502. It is good if you go to the official government website, and it's not every nationality is eligible, and so these following countries are not eligible: Bangladesh, Brazil, Canada, China, mainland, Colombia, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, El Salvador, Guatemala, Haiti, India, Jamaica, Mexico, Pakistan, Peru, Philippines, South Korea, the UK, and its dependent territories except for Northern Ireland and Vietnam. Those cannot. You have other possibilities, but those are excluded this year. This past year, as you may have known or heard, there was a snafu, which meant that 20,000 or more people were informed that they won the immigration lottery, and in fact it was a computer glitch, and then they were told that they did not win. And apparently some of them had already quit their jobs and started the process of becoming Americans, they hoped. So as part of that process of becoming Americans, immigrants from more than 20 countries filed a lawsuit against the U.S. State Department, Ilya Smirnov versus Hillary Rodham Clinton, but it was shot down in less than a month. The court said that it cannot order the Department of State to honor a botched process that did not satisfy the regulatory, statutory requirements, etc., etc., etc. Angry people all over the world, angry at America, but hey, stuff happens. Now, we were trying to get on the call someone from Council of American Islamic Relations, but I take it he hasn't been located. So I will instead ask for one announcement, and then we'll move on to having our main guests, because today we'll be talking quite a bit about long-term organizing. You can go to a group of immigration advocates or human rights advocates, and they'll be very dispirited because, in the past year, there's been a lack of movement on many of the legislation, and because the election is coming up, people don't see anything improving in the near future. So people can be rather depressed. But long-term strategies are what we'll be talking today about, and we'll be interviewing two young people who are undocumented, and they've decided to become public in order to create a movement, strengthen the movement, and move forward together on behalf of many undocumented.
Save the date. On Sunday, November 13th, the Muslim American Civil Liberties Coalition presents after midday prayer at 12:30 Dawood Masjid, State Street in Brooklyn. So come join to discuss very important subjects. One of them being hatred of U.S. Muslims and Arabs. What can we do? Another one would be changes in immigration law. How does this affect us? Another subject, police spying on the community. Are we all at risk? And also, what are community leaders doing about this? Dr. Ahmed Jabir from the Arab Federation will be there. Linda Sarsour from the Arab American Association. Cyrus Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE, New York. And also undocumented immigrant activists. Basically, we need police to help communities safe, but recent media reports have shown that NYPD has engaged in extensive and probably illegal mapping of Muslims, profiling, and infiltration of the mosque, cafes, student organizations, and other community organizations. NYPD has established partnerships with CIA. NYPD has stop and frisk policies that have targeted millions of people of color. In the last 5 years, NYPD has also assigned aggressive informants who target and corrupt the vulnerable in our community who have no link to actual terror groups and who end up in solitary confinement for many years after. Other agencies like the FBI and ICE, or also known as Immigration Customs Enforcement, have also gone after many good Muslims and destroyed families. Young people whose parents came here and did not become permanent residents are at risk too. Some immigration attorneys are incompetent and also make matters worse. So how do we change this situation? You can join us for a Know Your Rights presentation and for discussions of ways we can improve our lives in the current situations. Come for your family, come for your friends, and more importantly, come for your community.
Great. And that's a great save because we were scrambling back here to try to figure out how to get the next guest on, and I had given a slightly wrong number on our sheet, so apparently that's what happened. So we're going to get him on the line. This is Cyrus Mcgoldrick, who is going to be involved in these coming Know Your Rights presentations in Brooklyn, and he is Civil Rights Coordinator for Council of American Islamic Relations, New York, and very active. As you may know, there's been a whole series of articles published mostly by the Associated Press, but others about NYPD surveillance on the Muslim community here in New York. I mean, there's been a lot of scandals between, one thing or another involving the NYPD in the last couple of weeks. But this is another one that is happening. So we're calling Cyrus, and let's see if you do have the right number. Hopefully. And he is currently doing a whole series of workshops at the Muslim Students Associations throughout the CUNY system. And the reason for this is that these articles explain how NYPD is, in fact, naming these certain student groups as of interest, of suspect. And the problem with that, of course, is it stigmatizes these students, and they're seen as being potential terrorists, which is hard to to fight. You have to prove a negative, and so they are finding out about their rights. And welcome, Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I had done 201 instead of 203 on the sheet, and was giving folks here a hard time. So thanks for joining us, however briefly. And just wondered if you could just jump in and talk a little bit about the series of workshops that you're giving and why. What is the issue?
Absolutely. No, when the Associated Press reports came out, from the very beginning we realized that while there are a lot of options that we need to pursue to make sure that this is dismantled immediately, this being the NYPD spying program, at the same time we wanted to make sure that people were protected and that people were empowered, and people were safe. And the way we could do that is let people know what their rights are, that when they're being, confronted with law enforcement, especially law enforcement that doesn't really care too much to let you know what your rights are before they interact with you. And in fact, they depend on the fact that you don't know. We just make sure that we can bring some legal expertise to different communities, Muslim and activist communities, and share with them and work with them on strategies for protecting themselves and their families.
Great. And so far, when you're speaking to students, what kind of questions do they have, and what are their concerns?
I think it's always fun, talking to students and visiting these colleges, because on the one hand, the reports that these can be very, reports that there are informants in the clubs, that clubs are being spied on just because they're Muslim. This has a very negative effect on students and their political activity and their religious activity, because even a lot of these clubs have nothing to do with politics and they just want to pray. So it's interesting always to, hear what their reactions are. Sometimes they have very general questions. People they have questions about immigration because, the parents are always crossing the border and trying to fly in and out. Sometimes they have questions about, some people have questions from personal experience, saying that, I was stopped on the street and the cop refused to identify himself, or he didn't, allow me to have a look present, and they forced their way into my apartment. And these also alert us to very troubling aspects of law enforcement investigations, where rights, aren't being respected. So, definitely, we're all over the map here, and it's really important. I think that every time we do one, it's only a reinforcement about how important it is that we do more and more and more. So we're definitely going to be carrying this on in the coming months.
And once there's community education, what comes next? Is it oversight? Is it investigations? What are people calling for?
Absolutely. I think oversight is very important. The NYPD now is stuck in so many scandals, of abuses of power, corruption, police brutality. Even the New York Times today was coming forward and saying that that there was not enough oversight, over the department. I think we've known that for years, but I'm glad, I'm always glad to hear another voice, support that argument. So oversight is very important, but I think that as far as the allegations about the spying program, about spying and investigating Muslims, this is completely separate from police work, mind you. This is not about, following leads. This is about investigating people based on their religion. And any program that treats people in this way needs to be immediately, dismantled and become transparent. I think that's an important part also of this. I don't think I'd be happy. I don't think I'd be complacent with oversight just to have someone looking at some files too. I think we really need some real public transparency and a reminder to the department and to Ray Kelly and to Paul Brown and to all of them, that they're here to protect us. That they're here to protect the tax-paying American Muslims and all people. And if they're not doing that, then they need to get back to the mission.
Well, thanks, Cyrus, and keep up the good work, and we'll probably have you on again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks. That was touching the base. With the Council of American Islamic Relations and Muslim American Civil Liberties Coalition, many other groups, we have a challenge getting community members and leaders even to want to challenge the NYPD because they're afraid, they're intimidated. And that's the case also very much with immigrant leaders, and so we're also often in the very same boat. which is one reason why we should be doing events occasionally which deal both with immigration law and also surveillance and civil liberties concerns, because everyone is being oppressed by fear about these issues. So anyway, talking today with activists and young people affected by the DREAM Act, we're going to have on the line Emily Park, who came to the United States on a tourist visa a long time ago from South Korea. And she's been an activist, and hopefully she can tell us about her story and about her work. The DREAM Act, which would help people like that who are being kept in the shadows and denied certain rights, stands for Development, Relief, and Education for Alien Minors. So, hello, Emily, and how does it feel to be an alien?
Hi, how does it feel to be an alien in this country? Very frustrated, sometimes very scared to even go outside and walk around. I live in Flushing, Queens, which is very heavily populated with Asian, communities, and even then, sometimes, I feel a bit too depressed to go out and, just do my, everyday things. So, especially as a student, since you can't really get any financial aid, so you have to think twice about going to, applying to grad schools and planning your future. So it's very frustrating. Now,
you had gotten a degree in neuroscience, so it sounds like you're very motivated to succeed and to have a career. But now you can't go to graduate school. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because I'm not eligible for federal, financial aid or student loans. So I just decided to take some time off because I graduated from undergraduate this year. So I'm trying to figure out, ways to survive.
Well, that used to be called a glass ceiling in other situations, but that's rough. That's being kept down like that. How have you been coping with that kind of frustrating experience and situation?
Being more active in the DREAM movement really helped me psychologically, emotionally, and sometimes just in every way, it really made me feel a little bit more important in the society. So, joining the movement.
Hi, Emily. This is Abraham. I'm also co-hosting with Adam here.
Hi.
And, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm inspired by your story. I just had a question. Is how does your community react to sort of your activism around the sort of undocumented population?
To be honest, I don't feel like I get enough support from my own community because it's never really talked about. Issues like the DREAM Act or undocumented immigrants. I kind of feel that it's something you should be ashamed or you should be just stay silent.
Right.
So I'm trying to organize Asian dreamers because they're extra harder to recruit. Because they always have this sense of this culture of shame and silence. So, but it has been extremely difficult.
Okay.
And yes, it has been extremely difficult.
Has there been any what do you think it's going to sort of take? Has there been any breakthrough on sort of that shame and silence that you're talking about? Has there been any breakthroughs on a personal level? And what does that really, what does it take to break that shame and silence?
I was actually very quiet until last year myself. I was only active online.
Right.
And what made me really come out of the shadow was after the failure of the Federal Dream Act, the voting last year, and after that I saw a speech done by a fellow Korean dreamer at UCLA in California.
Mm-hmm.
And after listening to his speech, which I could totally relate to, it really moved me, and it really gave me a power of self-empowerment, sort of. So, yeah, that really, the personal stories, that I could really relate to, I think that those really help.
And Emily, I know that California young people helped advance the passage of the California Dream Act in this past summer, which opens up access to state financial aid for undocumented students. And not all states have that, of course. I mean, given what we see going on in Alabama and in Arizona, we know that's going in the opposite direction. It's really extreme. Yeah. But it's great to hear about some states. So in terms of your activism, are you going to be focusing now on New York now that you're starting an organization here?
Yes. I am actually a part of already existing organization called Dream Scholars, which is founded by a group of dreamers, Dream Act eligible students in New York. And within that organization, I also want to found something called Aspire, which is actually an extension of Aspire at UCLA and UC Berkeley. And Aspire stands for Asian Students Promoting Immigrant Rights Through Education. The reason I'm creating, an organization within an organization is because, I'm actually targeting, with my own people, like Asian dreamers, because they're, as I said, they have extra barriers to overcome. So I just want to help them to overcome that extra barrier they have. So, yeah, I'm thinking of just continue to organizing and continue to build our movement.
It's so important, yeah. I mean, when I heard last year of the students walking from Miami to, where did they walk? Washington, I think. Yeah. For this cause, to get attention to this cause, at first I thought, wow, I wonder if that will work. And, it did get attention, and the vote was very close, and it passed the House, but not with enough votes to go into the Senate because of filibuster rules. So it was so close, and it must have been so disappointing. But there is hope, especially when people like you have not given up hope, and it really, thank you, and I hope that we'll be seeing you at events, and that we'll be inspired by your leadership, I'm sure. After the break, we're going to be joined by Cesar Vargas, who is also a dreamer and undocumented, and will join us. If you wish to stay on, Emily, you're welcome to.
Sure.
Okay, great. And right now we're going to go to the station break.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Emily.
Hi, my name is Young, and I always have my radio tuned to WBAI 99.5 FM in New York. When I go back home, I listen on the web at wbai.org. สวัสดีครับกับผมยังผมฟังสถานีวิทยุ WBAI 99.5 ตอนที่ผมอยู่ต่างเมืองผมฟังได้จากเว็บที่ wbai.org น่าสนใจมากครับ
We're back, and we're going to have some music in a moment, but this is 99.5 WBAI, the War on Immigrants Report.
Hi, and I'm Abraham Paulos with Families for Freedom.
Okay, and we'll be right back in a moment. We'll put some music on for you.
My grandfathers, my fathers, my brothers, I lift up my voice and raise it high, telling the stories of your children's cry. ability to survive the onslaught of the enemy's drugs, guns, and alcohol, his prisons and his killing fields, depends directly on whether you are willing to stand up and resist the outrages that are being heaped upon us as a people and build a new society. Yes, the task is difficult. The odds are against you. But you must organize to find a way or make your own way. You must change today so that tomorrow may dare to be different. And when you have fought back and regained your pride, when you have won some battle, when you are able to tell the stories of your heroism, when you can pass on to your young...
And we're back to War on Immigrants Report, talking about the DREAM Act and talking with dreamers. And we just had Emily Park on, speaking of her experience, her story, her activism. And we are going to be speaking to Cesar Vargas. Hello, Cesar.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me tonight.
Fine. And, thank you for joining us. And I have to admit, for a minute, I thought we were with Jose Vargas, and that's just a sign that there are many Vargases involved and infected by the problems of immigration restrictions. I think there's 800,000 or maybe 1 million people in the shadows because of the immigration restrictions on young people who came into this country through no fault of their own. And so I understand that you have been here for many years. Maybe you could tell us your story.
Yes. And actually, Jose Vargas is, to kind of show also the diversity. Jose Vargas is from the Philippines, and he came when he was young, and so he's also undocumented. And myself, I came to the U.S. From Mexico when I was 5 years old. So that really shows you the diversity. There's not just Latino. And I know Emily's from Korea, and Jose Vargas from Philippines, and I'm from Mexico. And really, it's very diverse. So that shows the diversity. But like many dreamers, my story really begins when I was when my family, my father passed away in Mexico, and it was just essentially just me, my mother, and my youngest sibling, and my two older sisters, which were 2 years older than I was, and it was economic difficulties. We were at some point we were really kind of just trying to survive. Not having a shelter, so it was definitely tough. So we definitely made the decision to. My mother made this, great decision to come to the U.S. because she wanted to give us, a better opportunity. So we crossed the border undocumented illegally, and when I was 5 years old, and since then we arrived in California, and then we flew to New York, where ever since I have called my home. To me, I feel like I'm a Brooklyn born and raised, and despite what anyone tells me, I have grown up there and loving it, going to Coney Island and on the Cyclone roller coaster, going to just hanging out like all of my friends, really. And, that's who I am. And, for me, I still consider that to be my beginning, a humble beginning, like many immigrants that have come before me. And so essentially, since then, I have attended every public school system in New York City. I graduated from James Madison High School, and then, one of the difficulties there was actually the next big step, also the part of the American dream of going and attending college. And for me, it was different because, at that point, I remember actually being told that college was not an option for quote unquote an illegal alien like me, and that was, being told at 16 when I was ready to go to college. I had everything ready. I did my research on the colleges. I had college level credits because I attended, advanced classes. So I had the grades. I had everything, but it was just literally everything was closed before my eyes. Every opportunity. Everything that I have, worked so hard was really going to come down crashing. So, and actually I wanted to attend West Point. I wanted to attend the military, and I again, same thing. That was another door shut. And so it was definitely, for me, it was like the world was coming to an end, and there was no point really.
Well, you're very highly motivated, and I know that you have the career plan. What do you say to those people who attack? Because I saw one of your videos this evening, and I saw the comments. They're usually negative online anyway, but there was stuff attacking you. And what do you say when they say to you, "Well, we spent all this money, taxpayers paid for your teachers, and so you stole this, so now you should go"? I mean, that kind of thing. What do you say to that?
Well, essentially, that's really three really at the core, three arguments at the core of what this country is about. First is essentially, the immigrant experience that this country was based on, and even if that, it's essentially is, yes, the U.S. has invested from K to 12 to us, and it's kind of, irrational and uneconomical for anyone to throw that type of investment. And this is essentially like myself. I graduated high school. I attended college. I graduated from St. Francis College, paid tuition on my own. And recently I graduated from law school and recently found I passed the bar, which is essentially great. And this, I'm just one example. There are countless examples of fellow dreamers that I know who have graduated with tech degrees, with science degrees, with technology degrees, engineering degrees, and top of the class. And these are people who would be an economic asset. It would be myself again. I actually established my own company, and I created 4 jobs based on that. And I'm just one example. So it literally is like, is it simply hate, or is it simply kind of being stupid to kind of throw an investment away? Mm-hmm. Economically, it makes sense. Dreamers, if the Dream Act would have passed, we would contribute over $2.3 trillion over 10 years. And that's just a very, very conservative number. The opportunities are endless in creating jobs, in creating different fields for American-born citizens to, get jobs. With this economy, it's really nonsense. And that's why the anti-immigrant opponents really have a very strong stance or a strong weapon, because they only have to use sound bites of fear. Mm-hmm. It's terrorism, insecurity, 9/11, no jobs, and that's easy for them. So, and it really appeals to because I think the average American, hardworking American understands us. It's just the loud extremists who are really speaking up, really mostly. So, I know we have a tough battle, but at the end, the numbers, the facts, the economy, the moral, the social benefit is going to win over time.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think you're going around the country, around the city, and talking to people about this, not just people who are affected, but others. How do they respond to these arguments that you're making? Can logic win against fear, or is it more that your story inspires people? I mean, how do you get through?
Yeah. Well, essentially, I've been sharing my story in New York City, but I have shared my story throughout the country nationally. And one of the things about the Dream Act and about Dream Act students is that our stories are real, and they bring a real perspective on the issue itself. And in fact, as I was mentioning before, average Americans, they have no position or misinformed. And when we do actually say our stories and we tell them these arguments, logical arguments, they understand. They actually feel not only compassionate, but also a sense of, wow, I didn't know this. And it does make sense. And it makes sense to pass the Dream Act. So everywhere I've gone, like literally everywhere I have gone, the responses have been positive. The response has been compassionate. And it's just simply, there's a lot of misinformation out there. And as you were seeing, you see the videos, it's really easy to kind of, use the word criminal, use the word terrorism very easily. And, it has a very powerful impact. But when we share our stories, they're as powerful or even more powerful. So the effect has been very positive, which is great, really.
Great. Hi, Cesar. This is Abraham. I'm with co-hosting with Adam over here. I'm with an organization called Families for Freedom. We're an immigrant rights organization. And again, I'm inspired by your story, and thank you on behalf of immigrants out there.
Thank you, Abraham.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, really. What's your vision? You know, I understand in the short term, it's sort of, you know, trying to get the DREAM Act passed, but why is it important to America, and what's your vision of America if it was your way or our way?
Essentially, it's simply working together as what, and just bring in the spirit of, you know, ingenuity again, and just simply understanding what this country is all about. And it's not just the immigration discussion, literally what the many advocates that are in Wall Street, Occupy Wall Street, they have the same message. The Tea Party has the same message, even though, in my opinion, they were hijacked, you know, with extreme views. But overall, this whole country, we all share the same vision, in the sense that we want a country that remembers where it came from. Like for the immigrants advocates, it's a country that understands its roots and wants to move forward economically, socially, and just bring in prosperity to every hardworking American, whether they're entrepreneurs, workers, or, you know, government workers. We all want the same thing. And immigrants and DREAM Act students, that's the only thing we want. We want an opportunity, and I emphasize it, an opportunity to earn our place in this country, to give back to this country, and to make this country great again, you know, creating jobs, as I mentioned before, and just bringing the nation together, not just quote unquote our people, but the American people, to bring this nation back.
Just wanted to, you know, agree about the roots, and yet our system tends to set people against each other. Immigrants themselves compete against each other, and you see old immigrant groups be less than supportive of new immigrant groups or new immigrants, and so that's something that we might be aware of and need to struggle with, so that we do sense that we are we rather than, you know,
right.
Either or us and them, and the economic and military, you know, you make a good economic argument. And I know that the Congressional Office of Budget also agreed. Mm-hmm. I mean that the DREAM Act would reduce deficits by $1.4 billion over 10 years and increase government revenue by $2.3 billion, and then it's trillions over 40 years. I mean, it's and yet all those economic arguments didn't pass the bill last December. So we've got a longer-term community education challenge ahead of us, and it's people like yourself who are so important in advancing the public discourse. So you're also interested in being a lawyer for the military, and I know that the military has there's a part for the military in the DREAM Act which for some is a bit controversial. We have some colleagues who don't support the DREAM Act because they feel that, you know, giving people the option of becoming permanent resident through either education or instead military is somehow wrong. I just wondered what your own personal views are on that.
Yeah. For myself, when I was in high school and even in college, like that has been, you know, a goal of mine and essentially a dream of mine to actually serve this country, serve the city that has given me so much. And, you know, to those arguments that, you know, of lack of not supporting because of the military provision, essentially is the decision that the individual should make, not anyone else. And, you know, there's some of my friends who really want to go to the military and become professionals through the military. And, you know, they may want to attend college, but they want the experience of the discipline, whether it's the discipline or whether it's the honor or whether it's simply serving and doing simply your service to the country. So it's like, the way I see it, it's a decision that should be left to the dreamer himself, to the individual, not to anyone else. And I understand that there's, the lack of education or the lack of anything that would put, I guess, the person in danger due to a war, but that's a decision that, that person should make.
Right, you're saying it's not mandated for all dreamers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's an option. It's education or the military, and there's many dreamers out there who want to pursue the educational, but there is also many dreamers who want to pursue a military, and to kind of say no because someone else disagrees is really, really unfair, because it robs the choice.
Yeah. Great answer. Also, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about sort of the economic aspect about it. And when you go out there and sort of talk about the immigration as a whole, do you find, is there any value in also talking about sort of the push factors of why we come to America? Right?
Yeah.
You do, and as far as sort of your situation or your family situation in Mexico, basically, I guess my question is what were the conditions in Mexico that sort of pushed you to America for you and your family?
Oh yes, and when the decision that my mother made was based on, many factors, including my father passed away, so it was just herself and, and 5 young children, and also she had really no other way to really make a living herself, and she had to support, and the economy was also doing bad. So it really, in a global aspect, there's also, many policies that have been detrimental to, the economies throughout the country. And one of the things that many scholars or even just international immigrants advocates is NAFTA. But overall, really simply is making the decision that you want something better for your family. It's that the fact that someone comes is very similar to the decision that was made by immigrants in, the first immigrants of, Mayflower, religious persecution. During the early 1900s, the Italian, Irish Americans, they all came because of a war-stricken poverty levels in Italy and in Ireland with the potato famine. So, the factors have been very similar. And essentially, this type of movement is it's right now it's Latinos and, Middle Eastern or Israeli immigrants, but the kind of using the scapegoat has been kind of the same thing as, people didn't like Italians before, people didn't like Irish before, people didn't like German before. And, and that's what we have to understand, really understand where we're coming from, understand our roots again, because as they say, those who don't know history make the same mistakes and tend to repeat them. And that is why it's so important for ourselves to kind of share the stories, but also kind of emphasize the factors of why our families came, which are factors very similar to other immigrants before us.
And, in an economy like this, instead of blaming the bankers, we blame the immigrants and think that they're taking our jobs. And it's a unfortunate and wrong and interesting that should happen, but it's nothing new. It's an old pattern. And you blame the vulnerable, blame the victim even. I think that the export of jobs is a problem for but things shift, and there's not a simple answer that I know of for these global shifts. But people are suffering, and to blame hardworking immigrants. I mean, obviously you're not driving down the the salary of immigrant or any workers, because you are, becoming a lawyer, and you won't drive down the $200 an hour fee, I'm sure. It's not, you can't blame everything on immigrants, and it's
right. And I think we all make key points here. One of the things that I also like to make sort of the connection when we think about these things as far as economics and the global economy is also that a lot of sort of the economic policies from the countries that we come from, right? Push us to sort of places like America and Europe, and so that it's all connected. So I think you brought up sort of the Occupy Wall Street movement, sort of these. Basically, I think it's really important to sort of make those connections of saying that, we don't want to leave good weather and mangoes, right? And we're sort of kind of, because of economic policies that have been sort of imposed on our countries that sort of make us poor and put us in poverty, that we try to do what any rational human being would do on this earth, and that's make it better for their own families.
Absolutely. And really, and essentially also another topic on that correlates is the broken immigration system that we have, the legal system itself. It's literally broken, malfunctional. It doesn't conform to, a modern economy now. It's actually been like almost 20 years since, some comprehensive reevaluation of that. And that also, aggravates the immigrant situation and that's why it aggravates why there's so many undocumented, because even if there is literally no legal avenue for immigrants to come to the country. There's no systematic way for anyone to come. So it's also that aggravates the problem. That's why, and also including immigration reform, it really is a very important discussion, because the laws, the regulations that are on the books now, aggravate the problem.
Right. It makes it extremely hard, especially with sort of, certain countries you have to wait so many years to even win the lottery. I mean, we're talking 5, 10, 15-year wait to even get sort of a green card, and sort of the legal means that it's those type of policies and that sort of not overhaul of the immigration system that creates the undocumented population, and not the other way around.
I wanted to jump before we finish our talk, and hopefully we can have you on the show again sometime, but just again getting back to your personal experience, how you feel in being in this situation, and others that you meet. I'm sure you know of other stories as well. When you think about your colleagues in the same boat, and you think about yourself, I mean, how do people feel? What's the range of experience? It's
just to summarize, it really sucks. It really sucks. It's painful. It feels like everything that we have worked for, like for myself, like I commuted to law school, almost 3-4 hours, and just being on the train because I can't drive. I had to work during college, about 3 jobs, and during law school because I couldn't get state or federal financial aid.
Right. You can't drive not because you don't want to drive, but because they won't give you a license, right?
Right. And it's just simply, at the end, it's like, I have worked so hard for everything that I have. Like, no one has given me anything, and at the end, it means nothing. It really, like, all the sacrifice means nothing. But at the same time, we do have to kind of move forward, and that's what our movement is all about. The Dream Movement is to encourage young dreamers, that that we need to move forward. Like myself, I cannot get hired, but now I'm starting my own government relations firm, and I'm creating my own opportunities. We are providing information to dreamers on how to go to college, because my own experience of being told that college was not an option for me, was painful. It felt like the world was over. So I don't want no other dreamer to go through that, and also to make dreamers entrepreneurs, for them to use their talents to create jobs and to create an opportunity for themselves. So as much as, it has been, sometimes, really painful, we need to move forward, because that is what the American spirit's all about, moving forward and just fighting and never stop.
And, Cesar, I hope you feel that, most people want you here, and most people, would get it, and, that you're welcome. So I hope I can say that on behalf of the listeners.
Definitely. I want you here.
Yeah. So please stay.
Right.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah, thank you.
And we're going to sign out now. So thanks, Cesar. And by the way, if you're still there, is there,
Yes.
if someone wants you to speak somewhere, is there any way that they can contact you or other dreamers?
Yes, I could definitely get my contact info, and from there we could go on.
Okay. Do you want to give it now? Or is there a website where people could go or anything like that?
You could use this email address.
Mm-hmm.
It's info
Mm-hmm.
at drmcapitalgroup.com. It's DRM Capital, like in Capitol Hill, not Capital Money.
Mm-hmm.
Group.com.
All right. Info at drmcapitalgroup.com. And if for some reason people can't get through, they can contact Families for Freedom or me, Adam Carroll. You can Google me and find me. So thanks again very much, Cesar. And just a couple of announcements. Remember, the TPS deadline is coming up. The November 15th, the deadline for the diversity visa is this Saturday. And the November 6th, Building an Inclusive New York. How far have we come? Where can we go from here? It's going to be at St. Bartholomew's Church, 325 Park Avenue, at 12:30 November 6th, with many good speakers.
This is Abraham Paulo signing out with Families for Freedom. You can also contact us on www.familiesforfreedom.org.
And Adam Carroll from Muslim Progressive Traditionalist Alliance, and, of course, the New York State Interfaith Network for Immigration Reform. Peace, you all.